Oh, and here's William too. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Chris. Okay. Uh-huh. How will I know? Pop up on screen. Hmm. And it works. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Bye. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello, can you see me too?
I can. How's my audio and video coming through?
You're perfect. Well, you're perfect, but your audio and video is coming through fine.
Thank you.
Hi,
Glad
Jonathan.
to hear it.
I know, and this is a busy time. Sorry that it fell to this date, but
Oh, no, it's okay. We just got done with Honk and Wave, and
uh-huh.
those are always fun. Um, yeah, good times.
I see William's here. Hi, William.
Says he's still connecting to audio.
Ah, that's okay. As long as we have a quorum today. This is not obviously our regular meeting. We've been having tech problems with our Zoom stuff. 'Cause
Yeah,
we,
I heard. I'm sorry to hear that um, that's happening.
well, I think with all the reconfiguration of committees and where they meet, we have to meet entirely by Zoom because of all the committees that meet on this date.
Mm,
Excuse me. So there we are,
mm.
and it's and a change in tech people. Sorry.
Hi, Christopher.
How are you?
Good to see you again.
Hi, Christopher. I'm going to
Wilson?
get water. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hi, William.
Hey, Jonathan.
Hey, William.
Hey, Chris.
So, yes, the ballot is secret, but you got my vote.
Oh, I I'm assuming you're talking to Jonathan and not to me, but
I think I voted for you too for justice of
okay.
the peace.
There you go.
Mhm.
So yeah, I haven't put the ballot in the box. The box is behind City Hall, right? That box
Yeah.
there.
Yes.
Usually, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I decided to vote early.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, Greg.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, Greg.
What are you doing? Okay. Hey, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen.
Hey, Ellen.
Hi, Ellen. Oh, I had my agenda here. Where'd it go? Ah, here we go. Hello, everybody. Well, there's still issues with getting into, for me to get into the meeting and be the host. So Chris very kindly let us in, and hopefully we figure it out by next time. I'm not sure if we can figure it out. But anyway, welcome everyone, and welcome Jonathan Williams. Calling the meeting to order. This is it's not a regular meeting, this is a special meeting. It's 6:32. I wonder if somebody could take minutes. I'm having such a hard time keeping up, with having to go through the meeting all over again, which is okay. It's a little boring the second time, but sometimes it's boring the first time. Anyway, so would someone volunteer to do that? Greg, I like how you looked around there. No takers. You know what? I don't care.
I've done it before, but it usually isn't a
Well,
very
just
speedy process. So
understood. William, if you do it again, that's fine. Send it to me, though, instead of directly to them, if that would be okay with you.
yeah, let me bear with me for a moment.
I shall. Could someone else, does someone else have a copy of the acknowledgement? Because I'm having trouble talking. I have something in my throat.
I've got
I
it
can,
here.
I
Oh,
can
who's,
read it, or hold
oh,
up.
go ahead.
Well,
Ellen's
Go
got
ahead,
it.
Chris. Chris, go ahead.
okay. We acknowledge that Barre City was developed on Sokoke Abenaki land, which the Western Abenaki Nation never, excuse me, I'm sorry, this is blocking. Never, Ellen, why don't you read it, because there's something on my screen, I can't move it.
Okay, all right, I'll
Sorry.
read it. Which the Western Abenaki Nation never ceded, made treaty for, nor were they conquered. We aspire to create a space in our meetings that is inclusive, participatory, and equitable. We acknowledge that we all come from different experiences and that our experiences may be affected by racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, ableism, and many other systems of oppression. We're here to address within the systems of our city, address equity within the systems of our city in order to inform the city council of our findings. We acknowledge that systemic inequities exist and we do not debate the personal experiences of marginalized and underrepresented community members. With that in mind, it is important that we are thoughtful of the impact of our words on each other in this space.
Thanks, Ellen.
There we go. Thank you, Ellen. So, are there any adjustments to the agenda tonight? All right, seeing none. And could we get a motion to accept the August and September minutes?
So Ellen, I have one, I think.
Okay.
Since Jonathan's here, can we have that be a sooner agenda item? It looks like we were gonna do old business first. Is it possible?
Yeah, that's actually not going to happen. It can't because we really.
Oh, okay.
That's because we
So-
didn't get the okay yet from the council. So.
Okay, so we are gonna move right to Jonathan. Great. Okay, cool.
Thank you, Ellen.
On
All
the
right.
on the minutes, the only thing I noticed is Greg's name was misspelled on the in terms of the members present.
Okay, apologies, Greg. I shall change that.
It was spelled correctly underneath, but
Ah, yes, well, could have been a typo. I don't know, but misspelling,
I'm guessing so.
unacceptable. You're absolutely
Okay,
right.
I move to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
As amended.
As amended, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. So, we're going to go right to, since we didn't get the vote yet from the city council, I'm going to move that agenda item to next meeting, which is finalizing the work group assignments. Excuse me. At this point, I think I'm just going to pass it on over to Jonathan, because I did send each of you an article that I forget where I think it was a UPI article about this lawsuit against the oil companies, and so Jonathan is here to talk about it. And Jonathan, I'd like just to give you the stage, or whatever you call this little box, so you can tell us what it's all about. Hopefully, we've all read the article, but even if pretend we didn't, tell us from the beginning. Well, not the beginning of time.
Well, when the dinosaurs. No, I'm kidding. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Jonathan Williams. I'm one of the two Barre City state representatives. I use he/him pronouns. Very happy to be here tonight to talk about the Act 122, which was originally S259, the Climate Superfund, Act, also colloquially known as Make Big Oil Pay. The impetus for this bill started in the Senate, in particular with Senator Christopher Barrre, who really brought to the attention of the legislature the facts that, and this was substantiated by many hundreds of hours of testimony, but the facts that these large fossil fuel producers, large, mostly oil companies, have known about the impacts of anthropomorphic climate change, or human accelerated climate change for decades, since at least the 1950s. However, it's likely that they knew about it long before that. And indeed, I've read excerpts from writings from the 1870s and 1880s that even theorize what these coal plants that all of the industrialized nations were building would do if they continued to emit pollutants into the atmosphere. And they, even as far back as the 19th century, they had theorized that these emissions would gradually warm the planet. So it turns out, and again, this is substantiated by quite a bit of testimony, that our climate is changing, and that climate change is in great part due to human action. And despite knowing about our changing climate, and that what they were doing was accelerating the pace of climate change, these large oil companies, fossil fuel providers and extractors did nothing, and in fact acted to cover up the scientific understanding of human accelerated climate change. And we have, as you know, in Barre, paid the price. In my opinion, the 2023 and 2024 floods were in great part due to our changing climate. It has never rained 7+, even as much as 9+ inches of rain in so short a time. Even in the great floods in the 1920s and during Tropical Storm Irene, it never rained so much. For every degree of Fahrenheit, increase in the average temperature on our planet, the atmosphere holds 15 to 19% more liquid water in it. And as a result, these storm events are much more intense and much more damaging. When it costs the state of Vermont $1 billion in 2023, we don't know how much the 2024 floods will cost Vermont, but it costs the state of Vermont $1 billion in total, and it costs Central Vermont businesses $300 million in expenses alone to repair or salvage their properties and equipment and inventory. It seems sensible to me that those companies that were primarily responsible for selling these products and actively covering up the impact of these products should bear some amount of responsibility for the costs. To that end, the legislature has passed this bill, this act, Act 122. And what it does is it sets up a fund in the Agency of Natural Resources through which the state will bring the collected earnings of lawsuits that are filed against those companies that were primarily responsible for selling, I believe, between the period of 1995 and 2024, producing fossil fuel extractors or crude oil refiners that generated 1 billion metric tons or more of covered greenhouse gases during that period. And so that is not the small Vermont fuel dealers in any sense. That is the large ExxonMobil's and Saudi Aramco companies of the world that are producing and extracting these pollutants, these fossil fuels from the earth. And when people, and that fund that is set up in ANR will then be used to fund infrastructure improvements in the state of Vermont. The legislature through S310 created a municipal hazard mitigation infrastructure grant program, which the state is actually identifying, which the city is identifying priorities to apply for now. And that's things like culverts, bridges, even streambed, riverbed maintenance, or dredging, as some call it. Those types of projects that are designed to remediate or improve our infrastructure's ability to withstand storm events. The goal is to fund those types of projects with the earnings from these lawsuits. And that is basically it in a nutshell. The bill passed overwhelmingly in the House and Senate with tripartisan support, Republican, Democrat, progressive, and independent support. And so it is now law. It's the first law of its kind in the country, in the United States. There was a lot of national press coverage. It was, I believe it made the Tonight Show even. And so, yeah, that is the idea behind it. And when people say, the last point I'll make is the lawsuits won't yield any results. They won't yield any revenues for the damages sustained by our changing climate. I would only point to the opioid settlement. People criticize that effort as like, oh, you'll never get money from the opioid manufacturers. It's way too late. They were, blah, blah, blah. And yet a lot of our overdose prevention and treatment for drug use disorder in Vermont is being funded through opioid settlement monies now. So I do think this is a viable path forward to funding climate resilience, to hardening our infrastructure. And no one knows better than Barry what we're dealing with here. So I'll stop talking now. I'm happy to answer any questions with the caveat that I do not serve on a committee of jurisdiction. I serve on House Commerce and Economic Development. And so I did not hear all the testimony, but for that which was provided on the House floor. So,
Ellen, did you want to say something?
I wonder, Jonathan, if you have figures. I know you gave us figures on what the oil companies, the extractors and the manufacturers contributed to climate. Do you have figures about how much they profited in those years?
I know those figures exist. I do not have them
Okay.
at hand, but I can certainly get those to you. I do that does flag something that I forgot to mention, and that's the notion of attribution science, which is a burgeoning field of study which looks at using supercomputers and artificial intelligence, looks at basically how much our climate has changed in terms of temperature, frequency, and severity of storm events, et cetera, and how much it would not have changed if the baseline model, if these pollutants had not been introduced into the atmosphere. And through attribution science, we are able to derive the cost of the impact of these types of pollutants and what these companies have effectively done. But I don't know. I know that there are certainly estimates, Ellen, as to how much they profited, but it's certainly in the hundreds of billions of dollars, if not more.
Right, because I think there are two tests here. There is the responsibility and there's the ability to pay. And maybe even a third piece that's a wedge right in there, which is that not only did they do this thing, but they profited off of it.
Yes.
So that's really, I think that's something that people don't think about enough. And here we are in Barre. We're a poor community. We're trying to mitigate and rebuild the effects that are way bigger than us. They're caused by powers way bigger than us. They were not caused by us. So I applaud this bill, and it's long overdue, I think. And yay for Vermont to do it first.
Yeah, and thank you. And I think certainly these companies have, it's simply a rounding error for them to compensate Vermont for the impacts of climate change or their contributions to climate change, the damages that they are responsible for. But I think their concerns and why they will likely contest this bill in court is, well, if New York and California and the European Union all follow suit, that's going to become exponentially more expensive for them.
And North Carolina and Florida and
Yeah.
on and on and on. Sorry, Joel.
That's okay. Jonathan, correct me if I'm not sure about this, but I thought I read that that the state also in its law allowed individual communities to tag on to the lawsuit. Is that true?
Yeah, I saw that you were interested in that topic, and I reached out to our legislative counsel, and because I could not find any element of that in the bill itself, but it doesn't mean it's not there. But I'll take a look again. But I emailed our attorney general also, as they will be the ones responsible for conducting the suits, as to whether or not that's a possibility. At a minimum, though, with my superficial, I was raised by lawyers. I don't know if it's that obvious or not, but with my superficial understanding, at the very least, the city could file an amicus brief with the state's suit and suggest that, we, as one of the less wealthy communities, are at the bleeding edge of the impacts of climate change and are supportive of the state's efforts. And here's what it's cost to our community. Here's what it's cost in homes and lives and in damage to our infrastructure. I certainly see that I can't see the state turning that kind of support down. So as to whether or not they can join the suit, I'm waiting on an answer. I had hoped to have one for you before tonight. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So the way I see it, and certainly chime in, folks, with your perspectives. Our committee is perfectly positioned to put some ideas out there to city government to create this amicus brief. Certainly, we know that the impacts of the flood affected people disproportionately in our city, not just because of because of location, and because it affected poorer communities in greater degree. So it is definitely squarely an equity issue, and it would be really valuable to our city if we got the city attorney or whomever they want to hire, I guess, to create, if he can't do it, to create this amicus brief to join in. So it perhaps is a little premature, but perhaps we can work together to put something to figure out how we can be effective in promoting this. William, did you have something to add?
Yeah, one of my concerns is that if we're going after big oil, one of the things, there was a bill that was passed I believe in the last legislative session, that was heavily promoted by big oil. And that was the Global Warming Solutions Act. And the reason why they were promoting it so hard is because it was really an attack on little oil and all of the small, it would have had a tremendous impact on all of the small oil companies, your Tronos, your Contis, and so forth. And so I think if we're looking at going after big oil, one of the things that would be important to do would be to try to um, repeal that Global Warming Solutions Act and put our efforts behind that, in addition to any efforts we may be putting behind a lawsuit.
I can't speak to how or if that legislation impacts larger oil suppliers and producers more than smaller ones. I don't know any specifics around that, William. I'm sorry. I do know that no bill has had more money spent on lobbyists than that one bill in the history of the Vermont legislature. And that includes money from many large multinational lobbying firms, including the Koch brothers. So I can't speak to the specifics of how the impacts of that that bill impacts different sized companies, or the possible repeal of it. But I do know that with regards to this bill in particular, the Climate Superfund, our Attorney General was immensely supportive and testified and spoke many times in support of the effort and is confident that it will yield results. So yeah, but I'd be happy to look into that for you, William, if you'd like. And I'd like to learn more if there is indeed a distinction in terms of large, mid-sized, smaller oil producers. Yeah, but yeah, I think there's a path forward for Barre and for the state of Vermont on this effort.
In order to probably finesse anything with the city council, it would be important for us to collaborate with others on this because, we are basically powerless. So, but we could have an impact on moving this forward, and we'll just have to figure out a strategy as to how we can help. Christopher. Go ahead, Chris.
Audio wasn't up.
You're
Sorry,
muted.
I didn't realize I was muted. Has the lawsuit been filed yet?
No, I don't believe it has, though I'm not up on the latest. The bill only was enacted on July 1st of this year, and so I think they're laying the groundwork and preparing their suits, and it's up to the Attorney General and her team to determine how best to go about doing that. But I haven't heard anything since the bill was enacted. But I know they're busy working on it. So
I assume, well, can't assume, but that they would file it in federal court because it would get moved there anyway, I'm sure, by the oil companies. But is that what the commercial is about? Is being played right now about the oil companies opposing something, or I'm just curious because I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't seen any commercial about this. They might be about the Affordable Heat Act, which is a whole other topic.
No, I think it's about this because it seems like it is. I have MSNBC on all the time, and they play it on there. So anyway,
oh, interesting. I'd be curious to know if they're running ads already.
What is the Affordable Heat Act?
That is.
I don't really know anything about it, and I don't.
Yeah.
I know.
The Affordable Heat Act is at the current time a bill that was passed at the request of the Public Utility Commission to look at if it's a viable path forward to fund or assist small fuel providers in transitioning their business models to providing alternative forms of heat rather than fuel oil. There is a lot of disinformation around that specific topic. Many people are concerned that it will cost them money when in fact it does not. It's a study. The study cost approximately $1.1 million, and it was done at the request of the public utilities. Basically, they'll study if it's a possibility to incentivize the transition to for these fuel providers to transition to providing green heating technologies like heat pumps, solar, etc. And if it is viable, what would it cost the state and the fuel providers? And then it would be, if it would cost them anything, it would then be up to the fuel providers to then decide if they want to pass those costs along to the consumers. But at this point, it does not cost Vermonters anything. There's a lot of bad data out there suggesting that it'll raise fuel costs 70 cents a gallon. That's simply not true. Those figures were either retracted by the state, Secretary Moore, or they were making sweeping assumptions, like saying every privately owned heat pump in the state of Vermont would be funded through a carbon credit. It's just not accurate. As I like to say, how could you possibly buy a car off the lot if the car hasn't even left the drawing board yet? And the Vermont legislature, whomever that might be next year, once the study is complete, will have to vote again to enact the recommendations of the study. So even if the study is completed, if and when it is, nothing happens unless the legislature says it will again. So again, it's called the Affordable Heat Act or the Clean Heat Act. There's a lot of bad info out there that is based on bad math, and I have crunched the numbers myself because I'm a data person, and those really large numbers are just simply untrue. And that's the Affordable Heat Act in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I would really like to see a mechanism for Barre to be like one of the plaintiffs in Vermont's case. If that, I'm not sure that how that mechanics of that could work, but a town where we have 25% of people living in poverty, and we have a $53,000 median income as opposed to our neighbors who have 80, and that we are left with these costs, which we cannot shoulder. It's a good case. And I think there are other communities around Vermont who could be part of that, like St. Johnsbury, right? Don't know about the economics of Plainfield, but oh my God, right? No municipality can pay for climate change damages. They just can't. So I hope that you'll be bringing us information as it goes to see how we can really be creative about this and make it a really strong and compelling case and be an example for the rest of the country, like we often are.
I agree. If I could just respond to that very quickly, I think especially in terms of equity, less wealthy communities like Barre and smaller, more rural communities are vastly under-equipped or unequipped to handle a changing climate. If you look at Linden, that community of 500 people took out a loan from the municipal bond bank to rebuild miles and miles of roadway that was destroyed this summer. And the loan they took out is 2 times their annual operating budget. These smaller towns, these more remote rural towns, especially in the Northeast Kingdom, are completely ill-equipped to their infrastructure just cannot handle what's going on. How and we deal with that, I think it will require a vast reimagining of state government's role in general. And And there is a
Right.
flood recovery and resilience caucus now in the legislature with representatives from those communities also. And
Good.
our hope is that we can further expand on that work.
William?
This is one way our city could stand together instead of fight each other.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm done, thanks.
I think I misspoke earlier. I think it was the Affordable Heat Act that was the one that was being touted by big oil.
Ah,
And I think that was because one of the provisions, and again, it has to be voted on again next year, but one of the provisions is that if you increase the amount of oil that you sell, meaning if, for instance, you get more customers, then you would have to pay a surtax on that. And that would affect the small oil companies, whereas with the larger oil companies, it's just a blip on their bottom line.
yeah.
And that one of the reasons why the small oil companies were so gung-ho against it and the big oil companies were so gung-ho for it.
I think to your point, William, there is a consensus that amongst all the parties at the State House that there are large multinational oil providers, fuel providers that are making inroads into Vermont businesses, into the Vermont economy. And there are concerns, and they are legitimate concerns from smaller and mid-sized fuel providers as to how their business model will survive in the face of these larger companies making inroads into providing fuel to folks in Barre and all around the state. I think there's just a matter of difference of opinion when it comes to do we either act in a protectionist manner or do we create alternatives to these companies to change and adapt their business models to serve a new green economy. And I think, I think, that discussion is still going on and will continue to be talked about in the upcoming biennium. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah. What is the best way you think to keep track of this lawsuit as it develops?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Greg, for that question. I think the Attorney General has a great social media presence, one of the best. So you can certainly follow Charity Clark on Instagram and Facebook, Attorney General Charity Clark or her office. You can also follow the Agency of Natural Resources. They have an email newsletter. They also have a social media presence, though it's not as well operated, in my opinion, as the Attorney General's. I'll do my best to keep my constituents informed in Barre if I'm lucky enough to be reelected. And, also I would imagine the major news outlets as well as VT Digger will keep close tabs on the progression of these suits. VT Digger is a wonderful resource. If you haven't been to their website, I would strongly encourage you to check it out. They're very policy oriented, and they provide excellent coverage of these types of things. So I would say the major news outlets, VT Digger, and also the major parties that are involved, including the Office of the Attorney General and the Agency of Natural Resources, are the best folks to keep to get info from.
Ellen?
Yeah, but I'll say that that's the passive approach. The active approach is us getting up at our city council meetings, making noise about this, forming a coalition to put pressure to do this. And then places like VT Digger start coming to us, right? Because we're making noise. That's what it takes. It doesn't, it's not really a passive experience for these things. Once the lawsuit's underway, yeah, maybe. But to get to that place where we actually take action as a state and as municipalities is going to take all of us really speaking up.
Yeah.
And committees like this and so on. Yeah.
Well, So, well, can you suggest, Jonathan, some next steps for us that would be supportive and give
Yeah,
us?
I'm hoping to hear back from Legislative Council soon about your requests. I'll also take a look at the legislation again. Um, it's a little busy for me in the next couple of weeks, but I'll do my best. I
Oh,
will. No, I'll definitely get back to you all. And once we find out how local governments can get involved, I think you can decide to act as a committee and then bring it to the city council. And yeah, I would say advocate, communicate with your city councilors. Certainly, a case can be made for Barry's involvement. And if we can't join or the suit or suits against these companies, at the very least, we can file a supportive brief to that end. So I think we can get involved. It's just a matter of at what level and what is the capacity of the city and its attorneys as well. I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Jonathan, who would decide standing for us if we wanted to submit an amicus brief?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So if we wanted to, how would we get standing in order to file an amicus brief?
Much to my parents' chagrin, I am not an attorney, but so I don't know. But I would imagine the city if I had to guess, having worked in municipal government, the city would the city council would take this up, pass a motion to instruct the city manager in consultation, the city manager in consultation with its attorneys to submit an amicus brief, and it would then be proffered to the attorney general's office, and it's just a written document. And so, yeah, I would imagine part or all of that would have to occur in executive session, but I don't know.
So that would, but it wouldn't be the attorney general. Would it be the attorney general then that would decide if we had standing to file an amicus brief?
I believe so.
Chris, actually, Chris is an attorney.
Oh yeah, Chris, please, you know way better than.
Yeah, no, it would be the Attorney General's call, definitely. But I don't see why municipalities wouldn't be included. You know, I mean, we all, if anything, municipalities might have a stronger case than the state. So, you know, but I don't know. That's all up to the AG, really, and how they're going to proceed.
And
But
honestly, I'm curious, Chris, if you could weigh in, like, even if the city is not able to join in this particular set of suits against these companies, if the city had the capacity to do so, I don't see why it couldn't file its own separate. I don't know.
it probably could, but it's not cheap. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you know, I think it's more effective when it comes from a group, you know, like several municipalities and the state, or you know, that kind of thing. But I don't think we'd have any problem showing standing based on the damage that was caused, you know. But you know, we don't have a very progressive federal judiciary either, so I don't know how that would go down the road. You know, that's that's way down the road.
Mhm.
I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
This has been great. Thank you so much, Jonathan. This is
Sure.
some food for thought and definitely something that should be on our list and our radar. But I will add it to our priorities list.
Yeah, it truthfully, it's the Flood Recovery and Resilience Caucus will be meeting in early November, and this is something I think that we'll be discussing as well, because a lot of these impacted communities should and would like to know what is their standing, what are the possibilities for those small towns, especially in this process. So I'm glad you're having this conversation, and I think it'll certainly be held on a much larger scale in the months to come.
So when you have your meetings in November, will they be available by Zoom?
Yes, anyone is welcome to attend the Zoom meetings. We do warn them publicly, and yeah, the Flood Recovery and Resilience Caucus is 33 members at this point. It's tripartisan, House and Senate, comprising representatives from flood impacted communities, and it has a very particular focus. A lot of the progress we made last year was from a more informal group of legislators from Montpelier and Barre who were advocating for flood relief. And because of this year's floods, many other communities' representatives came to us and asked, what do we do? So it seemed like rather than reinventing the wheel, it would made sense to have a permanent space to discuss and air possible bill ideas for the upcoming session. And we've heard from the regional planning commissions, we've heard from the congressional delegation, we'll be hearing from Friends of the Winooski, and many other groups. But you're all welcome to attend.
So could you, because sometimes it's hard to track these things, these meetings, would you please shoot me an email and I'll pass it around to our committee about.
Of course, yeah. I am one of the two co-chairs of the caucus, so I'd be
So
very
you should,
happy.
and the link, of course, to the meeting. That would be.
Yeah, how do we find out when they're meeting?
We're still getting our feet on the under us in terms of the logistics. We're hoping to have logistical support from a third. Many of these caucuses have, like, for example, the Climate Solutions Caucus has logistical support from VPIRG. We're hoping someone can provide it to us, but if not, I will continue to create the Zoom meetings and schedule the gatherings myself, and I will certainly let you know. We've been meeting once a month. The expectation is that we meet once a month up until the next legislative session, and then twice a month after that. So
Will you post it on Front Porch Forum for Barry?
sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
that would be great.
Yeah, so we would know. But I agree with Ellen that I think our next step is to start making noise to our city council. Because they have to be the ones, obviously, to.
That kind of leads us into the next topic that is on my list, because we have to go from A to C. Jonathan, if you have other things to do, you're welcome to pass on, and you're welcome to stay as well. I mean, this is a public meeting, so I can't kick you out.
Thank you. I have some other work to attend to, but thank you so much for having me. Thank you for this committee's work. It's incredibly important, and I hope to see you all again.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So Emily's not here, so there's no point in discussing the scheduling for that's on the agenda. So I'm going to report from the meeting with the City Council. Were any of you? I couldn't see because I was actually physically there, so I couldn't see if any of the rest of you were there. I know Emily was there, but I didn't know if any of the rest of you had been there or if you've seen the video. Were any of you there? No. Okay.
I couldn't get on the website for some reason.
Well, that's too bad.
That was odd, but anyway, yeah.
Well, so it would be interesting for you maybe if you wanted to take a look at that on the video. So I gave the report, and then so I gave the report about wanting them to actually make a decision for us about what our charge is, because I think it would give us a different level of legitimacy. It would also give us a closer connection to the council. You know, we've had a great deal of difficulty in the relationship between us and the council, and it hasn't really improved. And I think that one of the things that's a problem is that, you know, we have no way of really supporting them. They're not telling us what they need support for, except, of course, to make the flag thing happen. Um, so I really believe that for them to actually make a decision about accepting what our charge is would really go a long way to helping us make progress. Um, I know that we don't need it. I mean, I keep hearing from the council members, some council members, that we can do whatever we want, but that's not the point. That's the problem, is that we're kind of drifting out there without any tether, and we have then no connection to the council except when we make these reports, and then we hear crickets. They say nothing, not even a question, not even one question. More to the point of my disappointment, there are even council members who are continuing to drag us back into the past, into my past bad behavior, and that was extremely disturbing to me, that there are still city council members who are bashing us. I mean, it's not like we haven't done enough mea culpas to, or me personally even, to get back in some kind of good graces. We're not given any grace at all. So I'm kind of concerned about that. And so I asked the council to, after that meeting, where none of the council members came to our defense, not a single one. And I thought, well, since we're having this meeting this Thursday, let me see if we can get the council to make the decision we're asking for, the decision about the charge. So I emailed councilors, and I was told by one of them that they would introduce it. I even wrote the motion, and I know from another council member that they would second it, and assumed that then they would vote on it. Well, that didn't happen. It didn't even come to the table. There was no motion made, which gave me further pause to think about, okay, so what does that say about the development of our relationship with them? And what does it say about our future potential relationship? I mean, I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts?
The one thing that comes to my mind, I don't know if they would even be willing to do this, but that we have we are on the agenda for every city council meeting, and one of us, we can rotate it, but one of us would go, and maybe report what we're doing, and just so that they can't ignore us, I guess. I don't know if that's effective. I'm just throwing it out there. It just came to my mind. And I'm always big on communication. But I have to say, I'm very surprised and disappointed by what you've said. That's just, especially given some of the members on that council know better. Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
They really do. I mean, that's just insulting.
Well,
I'm so,
I've kind of gone beyond embarrassment, so it doesn't embarrass me anymore, but it definitely gives me pause to think about, how we can manage this relationship between us. We tried to get them to go to mediation. They refused. They're still refusing, although I don't think it's even going to come up again for them. So, one of the things I was thinking about is, and why I'm so glad Jonathan was here tonight, and that we had some kind of coalescing around something that we can actually do and achieve. Because even though we did achieve creating a great education tool for the community, the Let's Talk series, and even though we adapted and got the city to adopt the assessment tool, if there's no way to use those things, if there's no way to continue that education or no way to use that tool, I don't know what use we're going to be to them. And frankly, that creates us. I mean, that kind of makes us a victim in a way. We're victimized by this disconnection between us and our power source. They're our power source. And yet we have no access to it. It's a very interesting dilemma. I mean, obviously not something we're going to resolve tonight, but maybe in seeking some genuine, like this lawsuit, some genuine issue like that takes it out of the realm of us and them and puts us together fighting, something that's on the outside might help. I mean, I don't think it's a panacea, but perhaps thinking about things like that and methods like that might do well. Okay, so I'm done with that.
I don't know if it's a role for us either, Joellen, with the upcoming reassessment for the grand list, from an equity perspective, but it crossed my mind. I don't make sure it's even-handed in the sense of, people who are really modest means are not hit with huge increases in their assessment, this kind of thing. I don't even know if the assessment tool would be useful for this, but I thought about that when I got my assessment thing in the mail. So,
well, can you figure out a way to bring it to the fore?
go to a city council meeting. Maybe get on the agenda. I guess Teddy is still my rep, or Teddy and Amanda.
So we would have to examine that whole process then with an equity lens. Like, what is the process? How is it?
Yeah. Well, do we think it's worthwhile? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I don't think it's a bad idea necessarily, but I think that's the kind of thing we need to think about. We need to start thinking outside of the box.
Yeah. Because they're not going to do it, obviously. So, which really, I frankly, I find shocking when I think of some of the folks involved. I just can't. I don't know.
Yeah, let's not think about the folks involved. We've got a system here that disproportionately puts all of the burden on the people least able to pay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can have some great people on the city council, and there are. They're not going to single-handedly undo that system. And of course, the people who have the least means are going to get hit the hardest by the reappraisals. That's a given. Just like the people who live the lowest in this town are poor and we're breathing in quarry dust and are breathing in whatever's outgassing out of the failing sewage treatment plant. That's what inequity equity looks like here, everywhere, right? The poorest people are suffering the worst ravages of climate change. Just take a bike ride around here. If you're living in Barre City, there's only one way, it's up. And then you can see how water came down into our city from places with giant lawns and giant driveways and lots of land and lots of pervious surfaces that don't absorb water, right? For our little equity committee to do anything at all is a hard hill to climb. It's a harder hill to climb when the city council gives us no legitimacy.
Right.
So I'm tired of that. I don't wish to be a rubber stamp. We're not even a rubber stamp. We're the appearance of equity work. And this committee has not been unified to get behind equity work. And they've used that against us too.
Yeah.
So, all these ideas are important and good. We're not gonna do it. Sorry. We're right now 5 people.
Yeah. Well, 6.
And they won't give us a charge. They won't say what it is we're here to do. We're not even advisors.
Well, and when we get treated the way we get treated in public,
Yeah,
in this committee.
that's right. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, an equity committee that has haters come into it on a regular basis for a while, where we had that period. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's one thing, but it's a whole other thing when you're at a city council meeting and you're hearing this from.
yeah. Well, it's all of the same piece as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, but
Same players. So yeah, sorry to be, have such a dismal outlook. But we've been well-meaning people on this, most of us have been well-meaning people on this committee. And 4 years we put into it. And nothing but fights.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and invisibility.
marginalization, worse than invisibility. It's
Yeah.
That's passive, but we're actively.
Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, on that happy note.
Yeah.
I am excited though about this idea of the lawsuit against the big oil companies. That's a great. That feels good.
When is our next meeting? It's the second Thursday.
What's that?
When is our next meeting? The second Thursday of the
November
month?
14th.
Thank you. November 14th. Right.
That's
That's
coming right up.
Yeah, it's not far away.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It said that the next meeting was November 14th when I logged on today. So
all
Yeah,
right.
that would make sense. The 7th is the first Thursday. So yeah, okay.
And I'll be able to get into it, but Chris is being good. He's available in case I can't. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens next time. I mean,
You still need to be the host, because if we get Zoom bombed or something, we can't eject people if nobody's the host.
right. Yeah, we had a weird Zoom bomb in the beginning. Remember?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, haven't
Terrible.
had any in a while though.
Yeah, no, the haters are not coming lately.
Okay, so we have the next meeting date, and the only last thing on the agenda is to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
second.
Yeah, second.
Folks, thanks so much.
And
Thank you.
Joellen, so the Let's Talk About It is not happening on the 2nd?
No, we had only 4 or 5 people sign up, and Christy and I thought, if we gave it more time, maybe after the elections, so I put out those dates to you all because we have a solid 5 people. I want those 5 people to agree to the next timing, and then I'll put it out in public again and see if we can shake some more people out.
Okay.
And Christy,
Yeah, I really would like to go to that.
Christy would do it with just us, but I thought it might be more useful if we had a larger crowd. So,
All right.
So please
I
feel
will send you an email with my choices.
perfect. Yep.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Take care.
Have a good month.
You too.